Let me start this class like I've started the other two this week, because they're all on the same topic, just describing what the Buddha awakened to and why he taught what he taught and why we're doing what we're doing here. The Buddha awakened to what is known as dependent origination, taught in the Paticca Sutta and many others, and very consistently in the same way, which states that from ignorance of Four Noble Truths through 12 observable causative links or causative conditions, all manner of confusion, deluded thinking, and ongoing disappointing life experiences follow. So the Buddha's very first teaching was to explain what that means. He taught the Four Noble Truths to introduce the foundation for everything that he would teach for the rest of his teaching career, 45 years. The Four Noble Truths states that dukkha occurs. The second noble truth is that craving originates and clinging perpetuates dukkha, suffering. The third noble truth is that cessation of this ongoing process is possible. And the fourth noble truth is that the Eightfold Path is the path developing cessation of our own contributions to confusion, deluded thinking, and ongoing suffering. Everybody clear on that? Pretty simple and direct. When seen in that proper context, it's kind of surprising how off track and confused we have become about what the Buddha actually taught. But that goes right back to the initial condition of ignorance. And so I've been thinking about this during these classes. I haven't talked about what I've learned this past year, and I will at the end. But it relates to ignorance. And just briefly, what is most surprising, and I think it's what really, it was the aha moment for Siddhartha Gautama when he awakened, was recognizing the incredibly subtle but powerful strategies we will all create, and that the world supports because it's an expression of our thinking, to continue to ignore our own ignorance. And so the Buddha taught an Eightfold Path to provide the concentration rooted in Shamatha-Vipassana meditation and the framework for recognizing our own ignorance. And so to bring to cessation the conditioned thinking that follows from that. Without the Eightfold Path, it can't be done. At least I haven't seen any other system, excuse me, that addresses the issue of ignorance in a direct way and actually provides a path to recognizing and abandoning that ignorance. That's the brilliance of a Buddha. It took an awakened human being to see that. So the Buddha's teaching is not just utopian, meaning everything would be wonderful if we could all just get along. It would be, wouldn't it? But we've been trying to get along since we've been on this planet, and we haven't succeeded yet, have we? Why? Because of craving and clinging. So the Buddha recognized that, and he taught a path to recognize and abandon craving and clinging. In that context, he taught that we all carry something called the 3 marks of existence. Every human being has these characteristics, meaning the characteristic of impermanence, the characteristic of the not-self characteristic anatta, which simply means that the views that we hold of ourselves are wrong views. The Buddha used that term to say, let go of the views. And then he taught a path to recognize, the Eightfold Path. The resulting characteristic of misunderstanding the interrelationship between anicca, impermanence, and anatta, not-self, is the resulting dukkha. So if we can gain insight into these 3 marks of existence, we can then abandon our own contributions to our own confusion, deluded thinking, and suffering. So that's what the Buddha taught. Now, I'd like to hear what you've learned along those lines and how you've implemented it in the past year. And if you have any questions about that, about the Buddha's teaching, we'll start with Kevin, because he's right here in front of me. Good to see you, my friend.
Nice to see you. Nice to see everybody here today.
Kevin?
Now you're going to put me on the spot.
Everybody's on the spot today.
Yeah.
But you don't have to say anything. If you'd rather pass, it's okay, too.
So you were asking what we've learned the past year.
Yeah, and how you've integrated the Eightfold Path into your life. And maybe any significant changes that it's made.
Well, what I think I've learned this year is that cultivating this practice by what you were just saying, emptying of ignorance and holding in mind skillfully the Eightfold Path has allowed this space or this samadhi, this cultivated mind state that becoming more and more normal or what to as this journey or path as keep going down this path as an arahant, or as what we all try to be, an arahant.
Good.
Just carry this place, or this calm mind that doesn't have any reaction or doesn't take things personally. And to others it might seem foreign, but as you just keep increasing your concentration and familiarity with these teachings and emptying, and further emptying, it's just there. It's there to be drawn on, and your new instructions have really helped keep cultivating that even more and more. And it used to be, I like the old instructions, and we're all used to them, I think, being part of this sangha, relaxing thoughts, mindful breathing, and it almost got ingrained. I heard Anthony say it the other day, but now the thoughts are still going to be there, but that samadhi is over it, and it's there. So maybe not relaxing thoughts. Maybe there's more than one thought between a breath, but turning to that arising, passing of the breath brings us back to that samadhi that we're trying to cultivate. So I think just trying to keep cultivating that, and it's always there, and we even lose it at times throughout our lives with the three marks and so on. But just to keep becoming more familiar with that state of mind. Thanks.
Thank you. That was that state of samadhi, a non-distracted state, is both the goal of meditation, with that single pointed focus on the breath, the arising and passing away of the breath, but it's also the quality of an awakened mind, resting in a non-distracted state. There's nothing there to create any movement, any disturbance in the mind anymore, because there's all self-referential views have been abandoned, all views rooted in the wrong view of self. And that you mentioned tranquility or calm. Those are qualities, one of the qualities of the 7 factors of awakening that the Buddha teaches to cultivate, and that it's an aspect of an awakened mind, calm and tranquil mind. And then he states in the Anapanasati Sutta that level of mindfulness becomes steady and continuous. That's the point. And imagine that. Imagine having a mind that is tranquil, and in that tranquility, it's steady and continuous, no matter what arises in the world. And remember, the first noble truth doesn't go away. Being in the world, dukkha will occur. But the point of an awakened human being is not waiting for the worldly conditions to change. They never will. The point of an awakened human being is to remain tranquil and calm and at peace, no matter what the conditions of the world are. And that's a significant difference between an ideological philosophy or religion and a practical development that acknowledges the common human condition of dukkha and craving and clinging. As far as I've seen, the Buddha is the only one that ever recognized that and did not teach something that is pacifying but completely practical. And in the end, if you think about that, if everyone would develop a common peaceful mind, it would end all the strife and difficulties in the world. It's not the goal of the Buddha. The Buddha never saw himself as a savior. He didn't teach anything salvific. But Maybe. I think it's the only possibility we have to bring lasting peace and happiness to the world. We'll see what happens. Thank you, Kevin. Yeah, good to see you this morning. How are you?
Good, thank you. See you. Good to see everybody on this snowy day. I guess I've spent a lot of time in the last year getting back to being almost the way I was when I was 15 years old, where I did take things more easily and lightly. I think I've run kind of a bell-shaped curve of, I knew more then maybe than I know now, in an odd way, But in the last year, I've spent a lot of time dwelling on getting old, and coming to grips with that. Yeah. And I happened to go on YouTube, and after I read Leonard Cohen's biography, he mentions Roshi, this fellow that he studied with. He had somebody in India for Indian thought. He had a rabbi for Daisic, Judaism, whatever, and he had this fellow Roshi. And the one excerpt that's on there, he says, is pretty much as far as we know, nobody has ever managed to beat, sickness, old age, and death. He said, so why fret over these things? So that was kind of neat. I thought that was very interesting, and that's what I've been trying to cope with, is not to get alarmed with things, and to take things a little more in a relaxed way. And if you can cope with things, and if you can come to grips with the real scary things in life, the things that, those three things you can't get over no matter what, you're going to be a little more comfortable. But it's not easy to do, because it isn't. But I've gotten some progress, and I guess that's what I've learned is not necessarily, I can't point to anything specifically from this class, but it reinforces that idea of taking things in their proper perspective, I guess, and not getting all flipped out about stuff that you can't affect.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you. I think the Buddha first describes the nature of suffering that way: birth, sickness, aging, death is suffering. Then he continues that with saying, getting what is wanted, what is desired is suffering, and receiving what is undesired is suffering. And then he concludes that, and sometimes there's other qualifiers in there, and he always concludes that description of dukkha, of suffering, by saying, in short, the 5 clinging aggregates are dukkha. And that's again, getting back to the brilliance of an awakened human being. He didn't just recognize that the human life experience is suffering. He recognized and understood that we can stop reacting to that. But the only way that we could do that is to develop wisdom and understanding of the nature of our own desire that things be different, that we don't become sick, that we don't age, that we don't die, that we don't react to not getting what we want and react to getting what we don't want. And he taught that that's rooted in ignorance of Four Noble Truths. And again, that's the significant difference between what the Buddha taught and everybody else that followed, is to understand that it's not just acceptance, it's understanding as well. We have to understand our own contributions to ignorance, the ignorance of the way things really are, and why do I react to it. So craving originates, clinging perpetuates suffering. Craving that things be different, and then clinging, creating an identity over what I'm craving. I want to live forever, or I don't want to be ill in this moment, or I don't want to age. I don't want to feel the debilitating facts of aging. Recognizing that, and recognizing that I'm clinging to the idea that I'm forever young is what creates suffering. It's not the fact that I'm aging. It's wanting things to be different than they are. And looking at where does that come from? That notion that I should be different than everyone else and I should be the one that lives forever is rooted in ignorance of the way things really are, and thinking that I am separate, that I've created a separate self. That's the epitome of craving and clinging. And so when we can recognize where wrong views arise, we can let go of those views. And in letting go of wrong views, the mind relaxes and samadhi is established. Thank you for bringing that up.
One other thing I just wanted to mention that occurred to me is that, all the different religious systems and spiritual systems that are around the world, and there's as many as you can imagine, that Buddhism is maybe the one or the only that you're not picturing a guy with a big white beard sitting on the clouds watching everything, and who you would pray, somebody who you would pray for is supernatural in some way. I guess Buddhism, you're often mentioning about how people take Buddhism, and I guess you could call it gift shop Buddhism, with the little fat guy, with the shiny bald head, and this stuff, and people, it seems, pray to Buddha as if he was a God who's going to participate in your life, instead of what you need is up in your head and your study, or the results of your study. That you're not expecting a supernatural being to come down and save you or help you or whatever.
You're absolutely right, Jay. But you can't use the phrase of Buddhism relating to that, because most of the Buddhist religions that have developed treat the Buddha. In fact, the reason why the original split that led to the modern Mahayana school is that the Mahasangikas wanted a more mystical savior like Buddha, and a Buddha among many infinite number of Buddhas as saviors. And I won't get into the whole, it's in my book too, by the way, Becoming Buddha, where that split took place, and it's on the website. So many modern Buddhist religions are just that. They're religions, and they teach salvation, and they teach prayers. The most extensive modern Buddhist religion, Pure Land Buddhism, teaches that if you incorporate this certain chant and keep it on your lips 24/7, and if it's on your, and I'm slightly simplifying it, but not much, and if this chant is on your lips when you die, you'll be instantly taken to this particular Buddhist heaven and being taken care of by Amitabha Buddha forever. Sounds a lot like Christianity to me. I'm not putting down Christianity, but it has nothing to do with what the Buddha taught. The Buddha didn't teach, he didn't see himself as a savior. He didn't teach anything salvific. He taught a practical way of developing lasting peace and happiness in this human life, nowhere else. And he taught that was the most practical and realistic way of looking at the world. Whether there's salvific gods and goddesses and divas isn't of any consequence, is it? Mm-hmm. The hardest thing for most people that have been brought up in a general way in religion, and that's really most of it, whether we went to church on Sundays or not, it's very difficult to get past the idea of living in a religious world and not have some kind of conditioned subtle belief in salvation. And that has led to taking the Buddha's original teachings and creating religions out of them, because that was the culture in which it passed, and it still goes on today. Most of the modern Buddhist recognized Buddhist teachers insist that we should accommodate all religions into one kind of religion, that they're all the same and they all lead to the same goal. And when I look at that closely, that creates more strife in the world than anything else, because they're not all the same. And we cannot reconcile Christianity and Islamism and Judaism with what the Buddha taught. But in so trying to do, we diminish all religions, don't we? And the Buddha said, don't do it. He said, this is what I teach. And he said this repeatedly, I teach the nature of suffering arising and the path leading to the cessation of suffering, nothing more. And maybe I'll talk about my own insights into ignorance. It's amazing the length we've gone calling ourselves modern Buddhists to ignore that basic thing. And that is ignoring ignorance. So thank you again for bringing that up. It's such an important thing.
A couple of things had popped into mind. And, when you talk about having the Krishna's name on your lips at the moment of death and you'll go to heaven or whatever, that's Hinduism, which is in the same way that, Judaism predates Christianity and so on and so forth. Hinduism is there before Buddhism.
Well, Hinduism wasn't. The Vedas were. But Hinduism developed. I mean, a modern application of Hinduism.
The different gods, creator, destroyer.
The Buddha study.
They called them Hindu, but I think that goes to the beginning of time.
Yeah, the Buddha studied the two teachers whose teachings were rooted in the Vedas, which is the predominant philosophy. I don't want to call it a religion because there was no real organization around it. And the Buddha studied those and rejected them immediately. He said, this is not what I'm after. I'm after the nature of suffering in the world. These don't lead to that. And he looked at them as simply more distraction from what's occurring. And it wasn't for him. And that's, the Buddha was the biggest or the most impactful radical thinker of his time, and his thinking continues to this day because it contradicts all the things that we want to believe as a society. And he's saying it's not that, it's this.
Spiritual red herrings.
Yeah, and again, it's just looking at reality. And to look at it even a little bit deeper, the common human problems of greed, aversion, and ongoing delusion hasn't changed at all since the beginning of humankind and since the Buddha's time either. We've had these teachings available to us. But so very few are willing and able to actually put, Mary, who was here last Tuesday, I think it was our Tuesday class, really put this beautifully. The sixth factor of the Eightfold Path is right effort. If we want the benefits of developing what the Buddha taught, we actually have to put the effort in developing it. We have to be mindful of all the other distractions out there and actually take to the Dhamma and develop it if we want to have an awakened mind, a mind that is resting in samadhi. Nobody has to do it. But if we want to have the experience of that, we actually have to do it. And at some point it gets to, we have to put all the other distractions aside and all the other beliefs we'd like to accommodate into Buddhism and practice what the Buddha taught. And if there's one thing that I've strived for in Cross River Meditation Center, is to just teach what the Buddha taught and just practice what the Buddha taught. Because why? Because that's what I learned from studying what he taught. He didn't teach anything else either. He didn't teach a conciliatory or an accommodating philosophy because he wasn't concerned about that. He wasn't concerned about gathering followers or making everybody think he was the most wonderful teacher in the world. All he was concerned about was teaching the truth as he saw it. And so he kept it very, very focused on developing the Eightfold Path. When you read the Pali Canon and understand it in the context that he taught, you realize that every sutta he ever taught was in the context of Four Noble Truths. When you don't understand the context, you'll take suttas and parts of suttas and use them to fit your own views, rooted in ignorance of Four Noble Truths. So again, thank you for bringing it. It's such an important thing, especially for this class. So glad you're here today. Lisa, good to see you.
See you too. And it's very good to be here.
Glad you're here.
Well, I have a lot of thoughts, and it's a big jumble.
Yeah.
Because I had some thoughts about what you asked about, and then all the different things you said. I just had like a million thoughts about all that. This Buddhism is amazing.
I agree.
And I understand, and I'm just beginning to understand. I mean, I understand the concepts. But you once said that, however long the beginning is for any particular person, being a beginner, it's usually more intellectual than actual, the feeling and the actions. Meditation, I like your analogy about passing of things and how the impermanence of things, the breath, and I never thought about it that way. I never thought about it that way. So I think you changed some things and you added some things. I like them all, and they were very meaningful to me because pretty much what I have is meditation. And when I sit down to meditate, my body says, "Oh, great." It goes into this thing like this is going to be great for your mind. And fitting the time in. It's like final time, and I'm only going to do it for 5 minutes, but 5 minutes is never enough. If I stop it for 5 minutes, my body says, "Wait a minute, I want more. I need to do this longer because it's. I don't know, they call that called some muscle memory, or when you do things over and over again, body gets, there's something in there that says, I just, this feels good and I need to do this. But the whole religion thing, I mean, that could be like a whole year of teaching or something in itself, it's the, comparative religions. But I mean, from day one, I think people knew that things were terrible, and early humans, if they did something and then something good happened, they thought that what they did would make something good happen, and that became ritual.
Yep.
And pretty much that's what religion is. To do something religiously is to do it over and over. Well,
That's
you
right.
could even apply that to Buddhism. It's just what we think of religion is the different religions. And most of it is religions, I think, they say that things are terrible, but you have an afterlife where it's going to be like joy and wonderful things forever in heaven. And whatever the different religions came up with, that's, and Buddha said, well, this is now, this is here, this is this minute, and who knows about anything else? You don't know, and it seems as religions have like sort of evolved into more and more of, we can't do anything, well, we can try to be the best people we can, but we're going to be rewarded in heaven.
Yep. For your suffering today.
And do good deeds and all the things that religions tell you that you should do. And I don't know. It's religion is such a contradiction. To me, it's like a clash.
Yeah.
And Buddhism is not.
It's a philosophy, not a religion. Maybe according to the old proper way which you've tried to teach us, and not to the other peculiar offshoots that people have come up with.
Yeah.
It's so fundamental. And it's so amazing that we have someone who came up with this. And I'm rereading. I got the second book, but I told you I have to go back to the beginning, and if I'm getting crazy or whatever, I'll just pick up the book that, your first one. Yep. And I'm rereading it, to the page where I have marked, and then just going through it to reread. I need to do that. I feel like I need to do that. So I'm not reading the second book yet.
We're about to all reread the first book too.
Yeah, we're gonna start a Dhamma study next week on the Truth of Happiness book.
I saw you going through.
Yeah, so I hope you can join us. I'm sorry, are you finished?
I don't know.
Well, you can say anything you want.
Sorry.
No, thank you. Thank you for your observation on the new meditation instructions. The feedback. Everyone has said basically the same thing, and I should say that it's not anything. It's not my own inspiration. Those are simply how the Buddha describes how to meditate. To notice always coming back to the breath, noticing the arising and passing away of the breath in the body, so to gain an understanding of impermanence, and to deepen our concentration. And it just works, doesn't it? When it's seen that way. There's actually something to do in meditation, in deep concentration. The way it's taught in a lot of ways, it's just to create a blank slate, or it just doesn't work. And I don't want it to sound like I'm putting down religions. They're fine. I don't, but I would have a hard time promoting them, except in the general way that they help, which is really the reason why they help control society, don't they? They do. They serve a purpose that way because of their moral teachings, but they also lead to a lot of violence. Even look at what's going on in Burma. They're a so-called Buddhist-controlled society is promoting genocide on Muslims, and and that seems to be okay to those people. They're not Buddhists,
I know, that's the clash I'm talking about.
Yeah, well, but
It's like two opposite things. They're teaching, peace and love of your fellow human beings and all this great stuff from religion, and yet they're using it, to as a permission, to do terrible things. It's just
that's the problem with ideologies rooted in ignorance, because it's justified. They believe that they're doing. They probably think that the Buddha is shining a light on them for doing these things. But every religion that acted out in a violent way believed that they were doing what was right for their God. The Christian Crusades were the same thing. Every human individual that acted in a certain way believed that what they were doing was right, at least if it was for them, in their minds. This is the nature of deluded thinking. And it's just promoted that way. Whenever you do anything based on an ideology rather than the practical knowledge of a Buddha, you're going to hurt people. It's just the way it is. Someone's going to get hurt. But it's not going to change unless people awaken. I don't think they will. Again, it's why it's so important to focus. If we're concerned about, I say it this way, the most loving thing I can do for myself and everyone else is to take to the Dhamma and awaken. If we're really concerned about other people, not just professing a way that we think the world should be, because that's really what most modern compassion is. I think the world should be this way and you people should listen to me. If we really care about other people, we'll take to the Dhamma and awaken. So at least we know that we're not contributing to the suffering in the world through our own ideologies, through our own wrong views. The world is never going to be a wonderful, peaceful place, at least until we awaken. And to even think that we can do it by ideology is rooted in ignorance, isn't it? It's the Rodney King syndrome. Why can't we all just get along? We can't. We can't because of the way we think. We need something to change. Legislation hasn't changed people's behavior ever, has it? And it never will. But thinking will, or changing the way we think will. I don't know why I'm on my high horse today, but we'll see where this goes. Diane, good to see you.
Hello. Good to be here, and I thank you, and thank you, and thank you again for being here and doing what you do.
What else would I do?
I think when you had the original question about this year, and this is in my language, not necessarily the Buddha's language, but what I have noticed different in me is that no matter what happens, I'm okay. The usual panic or fear, the number of fears that I've gone through this year, relatively unscathed, is for me miraculous, just outstandingly noteworthy. Fear seems to be gone. And there is, as Kevin was saying, I guess the word is samadhi. There's something that I know deep inside that is okay. And that's pretty grand. The other thing that I think I've become aware of is there are two other things. I have really become aware of how large my ego is and how that trips me up, with the delusional thoughts. And ego can really get me into intellectualizing everything and try to say or write something profound And then this other part of me that I'm recognizing is I'm here because I really want to be personally responsible. I can't give away my life anymore, the power over my life to other people, as I have most of my life. The only one who makes my life pleasant is me, and it's by my choice of thinking. And when I get into the intellectualizing and the figuring out of things, that does not bring peace and happiness. But when I realize the last couple of weeks, right effort has become a focus from the Eightfold Path. And I'm the only one that can make the effort, that can choose to get off of my old way of thinking, to recognize my old way of thinking, which was insane, doing the same things over and over again, which is, I mean, kind of a religious thing of my thinking. Really, that's truly what, for me, meditation has been really consistent of pointing out to me is the delusion of thinking the same thing over and over again, thinking that people think I'm either stupid or not good enough. I mean, and that's because egos wants to keep me small. That's my responsibility of what I think. And I don't have to think that way. What meditation teaches me, what the Eightfold Path teaches me, each aspect of the Eightfold Path teaches me that I am personally responsible. And I don't think anything gets more practical than that, for me anyway. And it's very basic. And I've needed that. I think that's
That's a lot. Thank you. Yeah, everything the Buddha taught us is practical and it's practically applied. You mentioned right effort, and right effort is an aspect of being gentle with ourselves, meaning accepting ourselves as we are, but not accepting the conditioned thinking or deluded thoughts.
that's a hard
David
one
said
for me.
David said something, I think it was this past Tuesday too. David, if you're online, I hope I'm probably going to paraphrase it a little bit, but he was talking about a very significant and influential teacher, and I think it was in high school. And the teacher told David that you're more than a C. And think about how and in the right with the right intention behind it. It wasn't to put David down. David obviously had respect for the teacher to take that in the way that it's meant. And it relates directly to right effort. That teacher was pointing out that it was David's own thinking about himself that was holding him back, that was keeping him at a C, rather than flourishing and not just grades, flourishing as a human being, which is really what the Buddha taught. The opposite of dukkha, the Pali word that opposite of dukkha is sukha, spelled the same way with an S, S-U-K-K-H-A. Sukha means human flourishing. And that's what the Buddha taught, by addressing the issue of confused and deluded views, resulting in dukkha, the lack of human flourishing. So when we engage in right effort and learn how to be truly gentle with ourselves, let go of all these wrong views of limitation, that there's a broken self here, then we can flourish as human beings because our thinking has changed. And then as we deepen our concentration and apply the incredible teachings of the Buddha, like the Anapanasati Sutta, that finally unites the mind in the body, meaning that's truly teaching the power of now, not what somebody else taught us now. To be mindfully present with life as life occurs, we have to be here where it's occurring, meaning in our bodies. And we have to be willing to experience everything, including sickness, aging, and death that goes along with having the human body. But we get to have all the other things, meaning the most important thing, we can awaken. We can develop full human maturity. Boy, another speech today. Thank you. Lorna, good to see you. So what have you learned, if anything?
Well, I said a whole bucket of things on Tuesday.
You
So
did.
I have thought of something else to answer your question, is that I'm not as afraid of life as I used to be. I used to be literally afraid of life in a way.
Yeah.
I'm realizing much more that you can't control life. You just have to go along with it and meet it as it comes. And no matter how much you plan and think it's going to be like this, you just don't know. You can plan it and hope, hope for it, but you just don't know. And so I'm much more accepting of life when things don't go as I thought they would. I just accept it. Whereas before, I would blame myself when life altered my thoughts. I would blame myself and think, this isn't good enough. This shouldn't have happened, even though I have no control of it. So I'm not, in a general sense like that, I'm not afraid of life as I used to be. And then I've been thinking about turning into another year, and step by step, as you realize more and more about the Dharma, you take steps to integrate the Dharma into your life for the benefit of your own thoughts.
Okay.
I think I'm beginning to realize that every time that your thoughts leave the present, meaning you're thinking of the past or the future, or you're going on a story, or you're actually robbing yourself of a calm and peaceful life.
Yep.
And that's just beginning to sink into my thinking that so in a word you could say that the present moment equals health, a healthy mind. You know what I mean? That it's the present moment equals health. And so just bear that in mind. And to help you think about keeping in the present moment. The Buddha taught us to think about our breath and come back to our breath when our thinking goes astray down a path of distraction or into the past, into the future, into a story, into wherever our mind goes. Go anywhere, I might go going wrong. But just to come back to the present time by using the method of your breathing to recenter your thoughts and get back into your body and get back into the present moment. And if it happens again, your mind goes off again, just do it all over again. And that's just what I'm sort of beginning to realize, that that's my homework. And but do it not do it out of a disciplined way, but do it out of an under the understanding that if I don't do this, I'm robbing myself of peace and understanding. Mm-hmm. And that's the goal. Not because John Hasbro told me to. It's because that really is the goal, to be peaceful and content and happy with life. Thank you.
And I told you so.
Yeah. Yeah, you're the intermediate guy.
That was what the Buddha meant when he said ehepasiko. He says, don't do it because I'm telling you to do it. Experience this for yourself. It's the only way that anything is of any practical use. We have to experience it. It's not, again, there's nothing scientific about this. The you said something so profound, that a tranquil mind is only possible when it's in the present moment, meaning not a fixed moment. There's no such thing as a fixed moment. Everything is in a process of becoming. But to be focused on your life as your life occurs without the need for it to be any different than it is. And that also relates directly to what you said, that there's no, you don't have any more, or your fear level has greatly diminished. And someone asked me the other day, in relation, what great benefit have you gotten out of all this? And that was the first thing I said. I was full of fear years ago. And I think most people in the world, whether you realize it or not, the world is a fearful place. There's no fear left in my life anymore. You know, there's nothing that I overly concern myself with, because I know the only thing I'm really capable of, and the Buddha talks about this, is guarding my sense gates, meaning, and not in some hurtful, hypervigilant way, but to remain mindful of life as life occurs. That's what that means. And I remember talking about this on the first retreat, and kind of in relation to the not self characteristic. And so it doesn't mean that if something is going to hurt me physically that I don't do about it. This person said, well, what do you do if you're standing on the train tracks and a train is coming at you? You take 2 steps to the right. Not having fear doesn't mean you allow yourself to get hurt. You don't live with a mind that is consumed by fear, distracted by fear. Which is, think about what fear is in that type of scenario. It's an incredibly self-centered look at the world. It's a self-referential view. Something bad is going to happen. Something's going to take away from my happiness and my safety.
Incredibly stressful.
It is. Yeah. And that's the nature.
From a chemical standpoint, from a physical standpoint, from an emotional standpoint, from all standpoints.
From that type of
the
thinking.
Essence of a reaction, of a stress reaction. And sort of what you were saying, come see for yourself, the Sika, what samadhi, what a calm mind feels like.
Yeah, you have to.
It's at ease, not wanting things to be different in the world. And when we're not at ease, what are we? We are dis-eased. We are not at ease.
Yeah.
It manifests in the body. Our teacher here isn't sitting there, but
yeah.
This is what this system that the Taoists taught. Yeah. That this dis-ease created in the mind, wanting things to be different via conditioning, et cetera, creates
real disease, physical and mental disease.
That's an acceleration of sickness, aging, death.
It is.
Because of an uneasy mind with the way things are in the physical world. If we understand this, cultivate this, we're going to have a lot smoother experience of this. And then the most compassionate thing we can do is to tell everybody else, come and see for yourself, right? You embody this truth. That's
you become an example of it.
You live it. You are embodying it by holding in mind the Eightfold Path and cultivating your own mind. Most people will see it. I mean, I don't really want to get personal, but over the holiday, there was an example of a situation. It was a car ride to see relatives. And somebody, who's known me pretty well, my mother, there was a little bit of a thing going on, party, Merry Christmas. Things happened. There was a conversation in the car. This is a pretty interesting frame of reference. My mother said to me, "Thank you for remaining calm." So that's pretty, from someone that's known me since I was a kid. I guess I wasn't very calm, right? Like you said, I want things to be different than they were. Yeah. But my whole life to say that to me was, talk about a Christmas gift, right?
Yeah.
There it is. That's the greatest gift I could ever hear. My mom. For years, my part of the family conversation was, wow, Kevin, he had this, there was a temper. I was known for it. But it's just not to get the off on the personal side.
No, that's wonderful. It's important to recognize these examples of the Dhamma working. This is exactly how it's supposed to be. You're able to remain calm in a situation where in the past you couldn't have. It's the essence of what the Buddha taught. It's why we do it. And if you take that little situation in a car and expand it out into the world, what happens? There truly is no more war, because we found a way to remain calm within disagreements or unpleasant situations. That's what the Buddha taught. He didn't teach that we should be a certain way. He taught us how we can be a certain way. And that is a significant difference between the 10 Commandments and the Eightfold Path, isn't it? And religious ideology and the Eightfold Path. It's not that we should act a certain way. If we are distracted and we're mindless and we're self-referential in our views, we can't act in any other way than we are as a society.
You'll be fearful.
You'll be fearful. You'll be craving after and clinging to ideologies and objects, or you'll let go of the need for anything to be different than it is, and you yourself will have a common peaceful mind. And that common peaceful mind can then be an example. The Buddha gained followers, not from advertising on Facebook. The Buddha gained followers because other people heard about this human being who was always calm and at peace.
When they saw.
That's what attracted other people to the Buddha's teaching. And they knew, because when they looked at him, that he wasn't like every other teacher who was trying to sell something to gain followers. They took a look at him. And man, this guy knows what he's talking about. Look at that.
Right?
Yeah. That's the difference. And that's how we can change the world. Or at least our local environment. Diane, you had your hand up?
Yeah. Coming here, when I come here and I don't come here, I feel better when I come here.
Me
and
too.
I am strengthened.
Me too.
There's something, this fortifies me. I mean, just hearing the things that we've shared this, every time I come though, I'm fortified in some way.
Yeah.
And I go out there and I can, this is just a sort of thing, I can be a little light and my light glows and I'm okay with that because I know that when I come here, the light is fed. And I don't know if the light is the right metaphor or whatever, but it strengthens me to come here, and then I can face the world better. I can even face home. This is one of the things that has really been profound. In most of my life, I was better when I was out there, outside of the home, because my childhood home was kind of threatening to me. And so ever since, well, I live alone now, and therefore going home was, it must have been an ego or a memory kind of thing. But now I'm at peace in my home. And I think that's because of meditation and the Eightfold Path and the sangha, because I know that there is peace within me. The refuge of my mind within has come from meditation, and that has, is going out into my life. But the fact that I can now go home and be at peace at home is really cool.
Yeah, it changes everything. The Buddha often said, and he said in the Mahaparinibbana Sutta, the sutta on the last 90 days of his life, be a refuge unto yourself. We gain the ability to do that, to actually be with ourselves and be a refuge to ourselves, because we've cultivated the quality of mind that existed. There's so many people say that they feel better when they come here, when they're part of the sangha. The Buddha said that often too. So, this really works. It's remarkable what has developed here in Frenchtown. A sangha that is truly focused on just what the Buddha taught. That is rare in the world. The Buddha said that in the Anapanasati Sutta during the Buddha's time. What has developed here is rare in the world, and it's truly the same thing here too. We're very fortunate. Lisa.
Diane says the most amazing things, and Kevin and Lorna. I mean, we all do. But when I hear Diane talking, it's just so deep in her heart. I mean, it is for everyone, but this is an infusion to come here. It's just like an antidote for what's the world. Because it's, you gain strength from this. And so Buddha said, look, I'm doing this, and then word of mouth, and that got around. And the thing, it's like the opposite of a religion, because of religion, most of them, like, you have to believe certain things if you want to be part of the religion.
Yeah. And you have to you have to associate with that identity too.
And so if you don't, then other religions have broken off from that, and so on. And every church is really different depending on who, or house of worship, depending on the group of people. And it's like, well, you can't just say you have to believe this. That's the ridiculous thing about religion. And what I love is when people take different pieces of religions that they like and put it all together, and use the good parts of them for their life. Maybe parts of it are Buddhism too.
Yeah.
And the good parts of Christianity, Judaism, is whatever. And just, I think that people should be able to believe anything they want, but a lot of religions say you have to believe this and you can't leave it.
Yeah.
Parents want their kids to be the same. A lot of parents.
Yeah, once you associate with it,
the same, and it was good for me. It's good for you, and then they get angry if they're not. It's just the opposite of Buddhism.
It is.
And it's so destructive.
It's very destructive. It leads to more hurtful conditions. I remember when I went to brought up Roman Catholic, went to a parochial school, and it was probably around the 5th or 6th grade. I had heard something about Methodists. I don't know what it was, but I was curious, and so I asked the nun, "What's the difference between a Methodist and a Catholic?" And her response was, she hit me with a stick. It's true. Well, this particular nun she used a yardstick to teach kids. I won't get into that story, but that was really her response. And so I was conditioned to think anything was wrong unless it fit into this narrow view of what I was being taught. And again, I might get Roman Catholics upset by saying that's not how every teacher was, but that was the response. You get when you adopt ideology, you also become very protective of that ideology because you have identified yourself with it. So anything that threatens that ideology is a personal threat. We take it all personal. And that's what leads to wars and all the rest of it. I don't want to get so deep into that.
So that evolved from this person, Jesus, who was a real person, who was rebelling against the ideology of what he saw around him.
Seems like it.
Whether it was the Roman religion, pagan, whatever. And he just went around and had a different idea. But look what it got turned into. I don't think that's really what he intended.
No,
I think people put words in his mouth saying, "I am the way," and I mean, whatever. I don't think I think he began as sort of like a Buddhist-like person, like saying, this is not working out there. This arrogance. Religion, you're supposed to be it's supposed to teach you to be humble. But the contradiction is it teaches, in the same way, it teaches arrogance, the opposite.
Yeah.
And those two conflicting things, But I think Jesus started out as just, and then people came and they felt good about listening to being humble and some of the things he was teaching, peaceful, and things like that. And then it just went on from there and got perverted over the centuries and millennium.
Yeah. Oh, I think that's probably right. The significant difference between what we know about a historical Jesus and what we know about a historical Buddha is that the Buddha actually taught a path to change the way we think and so change our behavior. Like many prophets, and we may have lost a lot of what a historical Jesus might have taught, but that's the significant difference between a prophet and the Buddha. The Buddha taught how to change our behavior by changing our thinking rather than just teaching we should be peaceful. Because the Buddha understood that we can't be peaceful until we have developed a peaceful mind. And that's a prevalent thought today. That's the whole idea of modern engaged Buddhism, is that we should be a certain way. And even engaged Buddhists to a person, I haven't yet found anyone that taught we should be calm and peaceful people, and we can do that by developing the Eightfold Path. But they just say we should be calm and peaceful people. And we can't, because we're caught up in wrong views. So I wanted to mention a little bit about what I learned this past year.
I'm interested.
Here it comes. And I mentioned it already. Because of my position, I think, not just sitting here, but being online and being mindful of what's occurring within the Buddhist community and then in the larger community, without taking any type of political stance, because I don't think that's helpful, is the incredible power of ignorance and the very subtle, I know I said this will be the second time I'm saying this, but the very subtle but very, very powerful strategies we all create as a worldly society to continue to ignore ignorance. It's really, the depth of that ignorance goes much further than just to say we're ignorant of Four Noble Truths, because it is in every institution that I look at is founded in ignorance of Four Noble Truths, and the supportive ideology around that continues to ignore its own ignorance is the biggest difficulty, and this is really what I was hoping to say today, is the biggest difficulty that everyone has once they're exposed to what the Buddha taught in developing the Buddha's teachings. It's surprising how pervasive these strategies are, and they come up. The Buddha taught how to recognize this when he taught about the 5 hindrances, because every one of those hindrances comes into play to make it seem reasonable that I don't have time to put in right effort and develop the Dhamma. My life is too busy. There's too much street noise. I'm too worried about tomorrow. I got to take the dog for a walk. My partner doesn't like purple. I don't like purple cushions, and that SOB John has purple cushions. We'll come up with incredibly powerful, subtle strategies that are all rooted in ignorance. And like the Buddha said, when you look at them, when you look at the strategies that are employed, they're like foam on the ocean. There's nothing really there. But because we've attached ourselves to them and using them to justify continuing to ignore our own ignorance, we'll continue to ignore our own ignorance. It really is remarkable. So that's really what I learned. And looking at it and the ongoing effect that it has within our sangha, but on a global scale, we've been striving for peace since the beginning of humankind. And yet we're always on the verge of annihilation. Since in my lifetime, we've always been on the verge of annihilation. The next war could be the last one, if we blow ourselves off the planet. That's not something new. That's not because of a current president. I remember going through that when I was 5 years old, and it's been part of our world my entire life. I'm 62 now. And for us to put the focus, and I don't want to get into a political thing, it's a strategy to continue to ignore our own ignorance, to put it on one person or one office, saying that it's occurring right now. It's occurring because of craving and clinging. And cling to those ideologies. And that's the most surprising thing that I've learned, is how powerful the need to ignore our own ignorance goes, and the things we'll do to continue that, rather than take to a gentle and direct path like the Eightfold Path and awaken. Not all doom and gloom. What also is surprising to me is the extent that the people that come here, and there's a few isolated pockets, and actually develop the Dhamma and make real changes in their lives. That is so surprising. Matt and I have lunch maybe once a month, and one of the things that we talk about is how meaningful, but also surprising. Those that continue to develop the Dhamma and the real changes they make in the life, the real insights they make to the three marks of existence. I've been in the Buddhist game for a long time, and I've never seen a sangha develop like this and develop the understanding that we can share things that are significant to each other, that aren't just babble. We're not talking about the new TED talk or the new modern Buddhist teacher and what that person has said. We talk about what the Buddha taught, and we develop awakening. That's remarkable, and it's wonderful to see it. Thank you all for letting me sit here and do that. There were 5 folks joined us online today. Thank you for joining us. The Truth of Happiness Dhamma study begins next week. The same class will be offered Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. That way, if it snows or you miss a class, you can keep going. Diane?
Where on the website are you going to put a notification that there won't be a class?
Right on Becoming Buddha. There's a link in the emails that says click on this link, and it takes you right to the homepage, and I'll put it right there. There's a link? Yeah, well, if you just go to the homepage of becoming-buddha.com,
yeah,
that's where I'll put it. I'll just put it right at the top.
Becomingbuddha.com.
Yes.
Not Cross River Meditation.
Not Cross River. Well, maybe I'll put it both.
Your email, I think, the last time.
Yeah, but I'm not going to do that. There's a link in every email. It says if I click cancel a class because of the weather, click on that link. If you click on that link, you'll see a notification if I've actually canceled class. If I don't cancel class, I'm not going to put a notification up. Would make sense, would it?
So it's on Cross River and becomingbuddha.com?
No, there's a link in the email that says if you click on that link, it'll take you to the homepage of becoming-buddha.com. And on that page, I'll put a notice if I cancel class. Is that clear?
No, but I'll go.
Well, in other words, if you clicked on the link right now and went to becoming-buddha.com, there'd be no notice because I didn't cancel class. If I do cancel class, I'll put a notice up that'll say today's class is canceled. Is that clear to everyone? Is it clear to you, Diane?
I can't say I mentally can see it right now. I need to go home and play on my computer.
Well, you won't see anything because there's no notice. But if I cancel a class because of weather, I'll put a notice up on the website.
All right.
If the class is going to be held, I won't put a notice up because there's nothing to notify.
It's right on the front page of becomingbuddha.com.
Yeah, I'll put it right at the top where anybody can see. Put it in red letters. Today's class canceled or whatever. I'll put the date so there's no confusion.
I'll find it.
And typically, if it snows more than like today, just some flurries, I'll cancel class. I don't want people sliding around just to get to a meditation class. But I'll post it right there where you'll see it. Big red letters. Today's class canceled. But I won't put something that says today's class is going on because it's always on. Okay, we'll finish with metta. Thank you for a wonderful class, and thank you folks for joining online. So find your relaxed meditative posture.
Just wish Tracy Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Tracy, if that's you online. And everyone else is joining us. It's great that you can join us online too. And the class that starts next week, if you can't make it here, please make it here. But you can also join us online. If Fringetown is over a 3-hour drive, then you can join online. So find your relaxed meditative posture. Gently close your eyes and gently close your mouths. And take a moment to become mindful of the sensation of breathing in your body. And be mindful of the arising and passing away of your breath in your body. And these are the Buddha's words on metta from Karaniya Metta Sutta. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud or demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove. Wishing, in gladness and in safety, may all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short, or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. Even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings. Radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will. Whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness, one should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding. By not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. Thank you for a wonderful class. Peace. And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
See you all next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You'll be the questions now?
Yeah, we can leave them down.